and support in Indian Wells. Look at this. I mean, this was in Australia. Court 6 literally had a line. I know I'm exaggerating, but it went for miles at the Aussie. It was wild scenes there. Allie, can you remember a women's star who gets this type of support wherever she goes?
Yeah, well, Taylor Swift. I mean,
No, there you go. Yeah, sure.
A 21-year-old from the Philippines is doing something that world number ones and Grand Slam champions seemingly can't replicate. She's selling out arenas, dominating social media, and forcing tournament organizers to rethink how they handle crowd management. Analysts are now openly debating whether she has become the most marketable draw in women's tennis, and not in the best player sense. In the people will show up just to see her sense. That's an entirely different conversation. So here's the question. Is Alex Eala already the most compelling name in women's tennis right now, rankings aside? Leave your answer in the comments. Curious to hear where people actually stand on this.
I'd have to say maybe a little bit of Sania Mirza. Back in her heyday, obviously the Indian fans took to her and they followed her all around the globe. Obviously not to this extent. And I think the ceiling that Alex Eala has is obviously that much higher. And I'm going to bring in a little boxing here because my dad wanted me to be a boxer, but I chose tennis. But Manny Pacquiao.
Good call.
Manny Pacquiao. We saw him when he, was at the top of his game. And alongside Roger Federer, he actually had more prize money. So I think that if Eala, can keep doing well with her tennis, who knows? The sky's the limit on the court, off the court. I mean, she could be rolling in it, if you will.
Let's start with a number that honestly has no business being real. Alex Eala's pre-tournament press conference at the 2026 Australian Open pulled 171,000 views. Novak Djokovic's pulled 80,000. Aryna Sabalenka's pulled 9,000. Read that again slowly. The reigning world number one in women's tennis, a multi-Grand Slam champion who dismantles opponents with a level of power that makes the game look almost unfair, drew 9,000 views to her press conference. Eala drew nearly 20 times that number.
She's got a smile that lights up a room too, and I remember last year when she beat Iga Swiatek, and she kind of did it with a lot of grace and humility, and it was really, for me, it was terrific to see her take that match and watch her play after that and watch her try to continue to progress, because I like her game. Obviously she wants to get better than where she is now, the 32 in the world, but she's got a lot of good hand-eye coordination and ability to take the ball early and redirect. But the fan stuff is always fun for me, because whenever you see players from smaller countries, the fans are so passionate when they get up to the top.
It's interesting, Ali mentioned Sania Mirza. She has nearly 13 million followers on Instagram. That's 5 million more than Carlos Alcaraz, and nearly as many as Alcaraz and Sabalenka combined. So that's how big Sania Mirza is, was, and will be. But Eala going to be seeded for the first time at a 1,000. To find out who she will play in the second round, check out.
Right now, Johnson's answer was yes. Not maybe. Not she's getting there. Yes. That answer deserves unpacking because biggest draw is a very specific term. It doesn't mean best player. It doesn't mean highest ranked. It means who fills seats, who crashes servers, who makes organizers anxious about crowd logistics before a match even begins. And on that specific question, in 2026, the case for Eala is genuinely difficult to argue against. Let's go back to Australia because that's where this wave of expert attention really began to build. The scenes at the Australian Open around Eala's matches were described as wild by those covering them, lines stretching unreasonably far, crowds that had no logical explanation based on ranking alone. A player sitting outside the top 30 at the time was generating the kind of pre-match atmosphere that Grand Slam organizers typically associate with top seeds in the quarterfinals. The Filipino fan presence was enormous, loud, and organized in a way that felt less like a tennis crowd and more like a concert turnout. This is not entirely without precedent when it comes to players from deeply passionate nations. But the scale of it with Eala is something even seasoned tennis voices are struggling to contextualize. When asked which women's star commands this kind of traveling support wherever she goes, one analyst pointed to Sania Mirza, and that's actually a serious comparison. Mirza had Indian fans following her across the globe at the peak of her career, and her Instagram following sits at nearly 13 million today, roughly 5 million more than Carlos Alcaraz, and almost as many as Alcaraz and Sabalenka combined. That is what genuine cross-cultural influence looks like in tennis. Experts are now saying Eala's ceiling is higher. Someone else in that same conversation reached for Manny Pacquiao, and that reference alone tells you everything about the frame being used. Pacquiao at his peak was one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet. His fights were national events. The entire country reorganized around his schedule. At his commercial height, his overall earnings were reportedly mentioned alongside Roger Federer's. When tennis analysts start reaching for Manny Pacquiao as the closest available comparison, the conversation has officially left familiar territory. These aren't fans making these comparisons. These are former professional players and analysts who have spent entire careers watching the sport and trying to stay measured about it. So what is actually driving this? Because the support doesn't come from nowhere, and it isn't purely emotional. There is a specific combination of factors at work with Eala that is producing something the sport hasn't quite seen in this exact form before. First, the story itself is unusually compelling. She trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy, grew up away from home developing her game in Spain under one of the most demanding competitive environments in tennis, came through the junior ranks with Grand Slam titles, and then began the brutal process of converting junior success into genuine WTA results, which, as any serious tennis fan knows, is where most junior champions quietly fade. The pipeline from promising junior to legitimate tour presence is unforgiving, and the majority don't survive it with their potential intact. Eala did. And she did it in a way that resonated deeply with a fan base that had been watching and waiting. When she defeated the reigning world number one, it was the kind of result that permanently recalibrates how people see a player. Not just because of who she beat, but because of how she handled it afterward, the composure, the grace, the quiet humility of someone who clearly understood the magnitude of the moment without needing to perform a reaction for the cameras. That kind of behavior gets remembered. It builds a specific loyalty that simply cannot be manufactured. Second, the market she represents is enormous and largely untapped by tennis. Southeast Asia is one of the fastest-growing sports consumption regions on the planet. Digital penetration, social media engagement, and appetite for live sports content across the Philippines and the surrounding region represent a commercial opportunity that global sports organizations have been trying to crack for years. Eala doesn't just appeal to that market. In a very real and personal way, she is that market. When a Filipino fan tunes in to watch her play, travels across a continent to see her at a Grand Slam, or keeps refreshing a page until the stream finally loads, something is happening there that goes well beyond sports appreciation. Here's a rewritten version. It's cultural representation at the highest level of individual sport. It's seeing someone who looks like you, who comes from where you come from, competing on the biggest stages in the world. That emotional engine doesn't run on rankings. It runs on identity. And in 2020 SIX's sports media landscape, identity moves faster than almost anything else. Third, her actual tennis is good. This part matters, because influence without performance is a short story. Eala has real technical quality. Her hand-eye coordination is exceptional, and her ability to take the ball early and redirect it, changing the geometry of a point before an opponent has time to reset, is something coaches have singled out as a genuine weapon. Not flashy for its own sake, but structurally effective. It creates problems that players ranked well above her have struggled to solve. She entered 2026 with momentum, went deep in Dubai, and climbed 16 spots in the rankings to reach a career high of number 31 in late February. She heads into Indian Wells, one of the biggest combined events on the calendar, with a first-round bye. Her season record sits at 10-6, which tells you she is competing, winning, and building. This is not a viral story about a player who trends on social media but quietly struggles on court. The on-court results are moving in the right direction, and the timing of that movement has aligned with the surge in public attention in a way that is reinforcing both. Now here is where the situation becomes genuinely interesting from a business and structural standpoint. Tournament directors in the Middle East and Southeast Asia have been openly comparing her drawing power to Manny Pacquiao. Novak Djokovic, who has seen everything this sport has to offer and is not easily impressed by anything, has called the surge around her a good problem for tennis. When Djokovic describes your fan base as a good problem for the sport, you have entered a different category of athlete entirely. The attendance patterns are already creating logistical headaches. Crowds at her matches are exceeding what venue infrastructure was built to handle. Organizers are dealing with situations they didn't anticipate because a player ranked outside the top 30 is generating demand that belongs in a completely different tier. Indian Wells is next, and those tracking these patterns expect Filipino fan support to show up in force. The comparison that keeps surfacing, and it's worth sitting with, is to what Sania Mirza represented for Indian tennis globally. Mirza created a template for how a player from a non-traditional tennis market could build a following that crossed borders and outlasted her active career. Her 13 million Instagram followers exist not because she was the best player of her generation, but because she meant something far beyond tennis to an enormous and deeply passionate community. She was a cultural figure who happened to compete at an elite level. The analysts are now saying Eala's ceiling on that dimension is higher. Not cautiously, not buried under qualification.
Higher.
And the numbers currently support that framing. A press conference drawing 171,000 views against Djokovic's 80,000 is not a fluke. That is an audience telling you something unmistakably clear about who they showed up to see. There is also the social media reality to address, because that is where the younger audience, the one that will define the sports commercial landscape for the next 2 decades, is deciding who to follow. Eala belongs to the generation that is native to this environment. Short-form video, real-time engagement, behind-the-scenes access, the kind of platform presence that turns a sports moment into a shareable cultural event. Her wins circulate. Her personality comes through in interviews in a way that translates naturally to screen. One analyst described her smile, with complete sincerity, as something that lights up a room, which might sound like a throwaway compliment, but in the attention economy of modern sports media, warmth and charisma are not minor assets. They are the difference between a moment that goes viral and content that disappears by morning. Coco Gauff built the template in recent years for what a young women's player with genuine mainstream crossover appeal can look like: the commercial opportunities, the cultural visibility, the ability to reach audiences who don't ordinarily watch tennis. Eala, according to several analysts tracking this in real time, is already pulling comparable attention in specific markets and outperforming Gauff in raw engagement metrics within Southeast Asia. That is a significant sentence. The ranking gap between them is real. Gauff is a Grand Slam champion and a top 10 player. But the viewership surge around Eala is not behaving like the viewership surge of a player ranked 31st. It's behaving like something considerably bigger. And the sports establishment is beginning to acknowledge that the usual logic, rankings equal influence, isn't fully holding in her case. So what does this mean for where Eala goes from here? The trajectory is genuinely exciting, and the experts know it. She is 21. She is rising in the rankings at exactly the moment her cultural profile is accelerating. The physical and technical development of a player at that age still carries enormous room to grow. If the encore results continue trending upward, deeper runs at majors, more wins over top 10 players, the kind of consistency that converts a ranking of 31 into 15 or 10, the combination of performance and influence would create something the women's game hasn't quite seen before. Not just a great player with an international following, an athlete who functions as a movement, backed by one of the most passionate sporting nations on the planet, competing at the highest level of an individual sport with global broadcast reach. The ceiling, as the experts keep repeating, is very high. And right now, in early 2026, the floor is already impressive enough to make tournament directors rearrange their logistics and former champions reach for boxing comparisons just to find language that fits. That is not a situation any serious tennis observer saw coming 2 years ago. And it is very much the situation they're looking at now. Alex Eala is not just a tennis story anymore. She is a viewership story, a cultural story, and apparently a crowd management problem, which, all things considered, is the best kind of problem to be.